Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel again. Today we'll discuss about should, ought and had better in a sense of advice and obligation and responsibility. So आज चाहिँ हामी should, ought to र had better को differences र तिनीहरूको basic usage को बारेमा चाहिँ discuss गर्नेछौँ. So today we'll discuss and come to know about very important and crucial information regarding the usage of should, ought to and had better and their basic differences. Okay, but before I start my video, my as usual request to you all is, if you are new to this channel, please don't forget to subscribe the channel, hit the like button if you like the video at the end. तपाईले यदि भिडियो मन पर्छ भने प्लिज च्यानललाई सब्स्क्राइब गर्न नबिर्सनु होला. धेरै जसोले च्यानललाई सब्स्क्राइब गर्नु भएको छैन र भिडियो मन पर्छ भने आफ्नो साथीहरूको माझ शेयर गर्न पनि नबिर्सनु होला. तपाईहरुको एउटा सानो सहयोगले चाहिँ हामी जस्तो टिचरहरूलाई चाहिँ धेरै ठूलो राहत पुग्न जान्छ. हुन्छ त? ल लेट्स स्टार्ट आवर class. So should, when do we use should? We use should when we give advice in English. So we use the verb should during giving advice, right? So हामीले चाहिँ advice दिने बेलामा we use should, and should is less strong and then direct than must and have to. So though we like must and have to, they are much stronger and they are more direct when giving advice, but should is less strong and then less direct than must and have to. But we use should while we give advice to someone. See here, for examples, like should is used for suggestions, and most important thing is we use should, as we have already discussed, when we have to advise somebody. When not, we have to like make somebody remind their obligations. Like for example, you should take notes on key ideas during the lecture hours. You should invest your money in a mutual fund. You should browse the internet for creative content. Got it? And after should, we always use base form of the verb. Base form of the verb means action verb. That means verb 1. Okay, dear students, which verb we use? We use verb 1 after should, and we use should when we give advice or when we have to advise somebody. Got it? Clear? Okay, if you are clear, let's move to next. So let's see some of the affirmative sentences with our verbs or modal verbs should, ought to and had better. Okay, so as with should, ought to and had better, they are also followed by verb 1. So now for example, no new actors should expect more. Okay, you ought to have a day of yourself. We had better tell him nothing. So now look here, though they sound kind of similar and sometimes they can be, or they are often used interchangeably by some people, but they have some of the basic differences. So we'll come to know about them today. Okay, so now talking about negative sentences of these models. Okay, how to form negative with these models. If we are using had better, then we have to use after, not after it, like you had better not believe it. And if we are using should, then we have to use not after should, like you shouldn't be on your own. And if we are using ought not, then we have to use ought not. Okay, if we are using ought to, then we have to use ought not to. Okay, so I oughtn't, instead of saying the abbreviated form of this not with ought, we have to better use I ought not to or he ought not to. So instead of saying like I oughtn't to be bothering you with all this and such a time, this ought not to be the case, or I ought not to be bothering you. You ought not to go there. All of these verbs means should, have better and ought. They take the not directly, means they do not need another auxiliary verb to form negative, because they themselves are auxiliary verb, modal kind of a type of auxiliary verb. So unlike, isn't it, verb 1 and verb 5, like we take don't and doesn't while forming negative of them, they don't take don't or doesn't. They can be formed into negative simply adding not after them. Okay, so we can also see that the not can be abbreviated in all cases, as we have already discussed. Okay, so now what is the difference in meaning? So let's talk about like had better. Of course, as we have already discussed, with should. We use should to advise somebody, okay, a kind of in a more polite way, more indirect way. So now we use had better when we have to like refer a kind of negative consequence to not performing certain action by somebody. When we say had better, then it means that if you don't do this, you may have to face certain negative, unwanted, undesirable consequences. Like, so if you see that it is going to rain and then the cloud is dark, and then you can say to your friend like, you listener had better take the umbrella. You had better take the umbrella. Okay. So because here if that fellow does not take the umbrella, then that fellow might be stuck in the rain or might get like rain all over him or her. Okay. So in this way it is not always interchangeable with should. We don't use had better and should interchangeably, though many people listener may use, but be very clear my dear students and learners that we don't use should and had better interchangeably, because we have now come to know that should is used, we use should to suggest, for suggestions, to advise somebody, whereas we use had better to kind of warn somebody that if that person does not do XYZ thing, that person may have to bear certain unwanted consequences. Okay. So like see here, if we say like how should I make payments, now here it's a kind of responsibility, a kind of no advice, a kind of like a kind of responsibility, but which even if not done, does will not like make a kind of, will not make kind of severe consequences. Similarly, so in this example, we see like should is a requirement and has no negative consequences. Though should is a requirement, but it has no negative consequences. So in these cases, we can't say had better, because we know that we use had better only in the case when we expect that negative consequences will be there if not done. So let's see some of the more examples, like I will call them tomorrow mom, I had better sleep, means that speaker might be tired. So if that speaker does not sleep at the right moment, so might have some physical problem. So here the speaker says that I will call them tomorrow mom, I had better sleep. Okay, so we had better tell him nothing, because if we will tell him something, then he might like feel bad, or he might have some negative attitude or something, pessimistic attitude. He had better earn his 200,000 pound. Okay, this new guy sounds like we are going to pay for it. So now look here, these had better, and then verb one. So here all these statements refer that if something is not done at the right moment, then some negative consequences might have to be experienced. Okay, so let's move ahead. Now similarly, we have another model ought to. Ought to is much closer in meaning to should. Okay, so an ought to can be used interchangeably with should if the action referred to is desired by the speaker. So when we use ought to instead of should, basically when the speaker desires the action himself or herself, like maybe you ought to wait outside, means the speaker wants that listener to wait outside. Okay, so maybe you ought to wait outside here. You ought to have a day of yourself. So here the speaker wants that listener to have the day off. There was no one there. She ought to have guest. So she ought to have like guest. Now look here. So here the speaker, in all these statements, it sounds that the speaker wants himself or herself certain action to be done by the listener. So here ought to is used. So there is a very minor difference, is that though people use interchangeably should and ought to when they suggest somebody to do some action, to complete some course of action, but the difference between should and ought to is that ought to is used when we clearly see the hidden intention, or that speaker has intended the listener to do something. So when we see the speaker's personal intention in that statement, then we basically find the use of ought to. And when the speaker may not have like that kind of intention from himself and herself, then simply we find the speaker using should and then base form of the verb to suggest somebody. So got it, dear students and learners? Now I think you have got it. Again, let me rewind it. So when we use should when we have to advise somebody or for advice and suggestions. Okay, for advice and suggestion. When we use had better, we use had better to mean that to warn. Okay, to warn about some negative consequences on not okay following certain course of action. So always remember that had better negative consequences. Okay, then ought to, we use ought to when speaker wants intentionally the listener to do something. So should and ought to sometimes they may it's not be used or they may be they can be used interchangeably, but ought to is used when the speaker's clear intention is reflected in the speech. So this is the crystal clear difference between should and had better. Basically, should and had better. Should advice and suggestion, and that should plus base form of the verb advice is more polite, less strong, and less direct than must and have to. So this should plus verb one kind of advice is polite one. It's less direct and less strong than must and have to. Similarly, had better is also kind of advice, but that advice is a kind of warning on not doing certain action because the listener may have to face certain unwanted consequences. Okay, so this much for today. I hope you got the point, and then if you have got the point and if you have understood today's lecture, please don't forget to comment and then so like the video. तपाईहरुलाई मन पर्यो होला आशा छ र यदि तपाईहरुलाई मन पर्यो भने च्यानललाई सब्स्क्राइब गर्न नबिर्सनु होला र अर्को चोटि फेरि हामी यस्तै भिडियो लिएर आउने नै छौं तबसम्मको लागि थ्यांक यू सो होप यू सी यू अगेन